Chapter 15, The Grumpy Griffin. Ben's heartbeat drummed in his ears and his legs trembled, for good reason. He was face to face with one of the most magnificent creatures he had ever seen. And while the rain dragon had been grand in size, the griffin was grand in design. His back half was covered in sleek fur, golden and glossy. His long tail ended in a dark tuft like a pom-pom. His front half was feathered, the plumage brown chocolate, with a golden sheen around its neck. And as he tucked in his wings, he stared at Ben and Pearl with a piercing gaze, and then his beak opened. "Who dareth to disturb my meeting?" The voice was just as Ben had expected from such a noble creature, deep in tone, royal in dictation, and grumpy. Definitely grumpy. "I guess I did," Pearl admitted. "And so did I," Ben said. Pearl might have shouted the loudest, but she didn't take all the blame. They had both been trying to get Mr. Tabby's attention. The king reached up with one of its front legs, which ended in talons, and adjusted its jeweled crown. "I was meeting with my most trusted advisor, and I do not like to be disturbed." A clap of thunder sounded outside. "We're sorry," Pearl said, and then she added, "Your Majesty." She leaned forward. "Bow," she whispered to Ben from the corner of her mouth. He bowed so quickly that his forehead clunked against the cage. Formal dress and formal manners were supposed to be pleasing to the Griffin King, but when Ben straightened, the king did not look any happier. "Guards!" he bellowed, and Vlad and Vic came running into the den. One carried a half-eaten branch and the other a handful of vines. They fell to their knees when the king glanced down at them. "Why have I foundeth 2 human children in my den?" "We're obeying your Majesty's command," said Vlad, "to bring you any humans we find. The boy and girl were in your maze." The feathers around the king's ears bristled. "Did I heareth correctly? They were trespassing in my maze?" "Yes, your Majesty," Vlad said. "Do you want us to take them and put them in the pit?" Vic asked. Strings and bits of vine hung from his beard. "The pit?" Ben cried. If Vic had used the word hole, Ben wouldn't have reacted so fiercely. A hole didn't sound too bad. Toads live in holes. But vipers live in pits. A hole is where you planted a rose bush or buried a pet hamster. But a pit conjured all sorts of ugly images, like bubbling lava and consuming darkness. "Okay, wait a minute. This is all a huge mistake. We weren't trespassing. The Griffin King took a quick step forward. He stood so close to the cage that Ben could see his own reflection in the king's eagle eyes. "Have we met beforeth?" the king asked. "No," Ben said with a gulp. "Then it is cleareth that I did not give you permission to exploreth my maze. Therefore thou art a trespasser." Ben didn't like the sound of that statement. Trespassing was against the law back home, but the truth was they hadn't gotten permission to walk through the maze. "Dr. Wu sent us," Ben said. He was about to explain, but Pearl was quicker. She pressed her face against the cage, aiming her words between the bars. "Dr. Wu sent us because she has troll tonsillitis, and so do the Sasquatch, Metalmouth, Violet, and my parents and Victoria, and half the town by now. We need one of your feathers because it's the only cure." "That's right," Ben said. "We're not poachers. We would never hurt anyone or anything." Pearl smiled. "It's really nice to meet you, Your Majesty. I've only met one other king. I like your crown." While Vlad chewed on the branch as if it were a carrot stick, and Vic swallowed another mouthful of vines, the king continued to glare at Ben and Pearl, his tail flicking with annoyance. "And how do I knoweth that you speak this truth?" "Oh, we do speak the truth," Ben said. "Yeah, you've got to believe us," Pearl pleaded. "If you call Dr. Wu, then she'll tell you that we're her brand new apprentices. And this is Ben, and my name's Waiteth." The king hollered. The word echoed through the den. "Do not speaketh your name. Riddle it instead." Pearl shuffled in place. "You want a riddle for my name?" She turned to Ben and whispered, "I don't know a riddle for my name." "Well, we'd better think of one," Ben whispered back. "And maketh sure it is a good riddle," said the king. "The riddles have runneth out, and I am in great need of new ones." Ben closed his eyes and tried to clear his head. "Don't worry about Mr. Tabby," he told himself. "Don't worry about being put in a pit or being kept in the imaginary world forever. Don't worry about what will happen if you and Pearl can't bring back the feather." Ben tried to remember what Mr. Tabby had told them. A joke had a punchline, but a riddle had an answer. And the answer to this riddle was Pearl. Images flooded Ben's mind. He saw an actual pearl. It was round and gleaming. It looked like the full moon. He saw his father buying a strand of pearls for his mother, and then he saw the oyster shell that sat in the jeweler's counter. Pearls grew in oysters. That was it. Ben's eyes flew open. "I have a riddle, Your Majesty." Ben took a long breath. This was an important moment. If the riddle pleased the king, then he might let them out of the cage. Ben folded his hands behind his back. "Her name begins with a grain of sand." "Ooh, that was a good one," Pearl said with a smile. The Griffin King whipped his tail as if trying to swat a fly, and then he cleared his throat. "The answer doth be Pearl?" "Yes," said Pearl. Vlad and Vic applauded. The king walked over to his throne and sat with a loud harumph, and then perched his feathered elbows on the armrests. "It doth be a good riddle, but I am stilleth in a beastly mood." Pearl gripped the cage bars. "Ben's in a bad mood too." "I am not," Ben insisted. Pearl rolled her eyes. "Yes, you are. You're mad because I dropped Mr. Tabby's leash. But that's not the only reason. You were already in a bad mood when you came to work this morning." Ben didn't say anything. He did not want to talk about that reason. "Speaketh," the king ordered. "Why was thou in a bad mood this morn?" Vic and Vlad stopped eating. Their goat ears perked up. Pearl whispered in Ben's ear, "Talk to him. We need to gain his trust so he gives us a feather." The king tapped his talons together. "I do not liketh to be kept waiting." Whoopsies. Ben fidgeted. He knew he could make up a story. He could say something that he was grumpy, or that he had found a dead moth in his cereal, or because the troop of clowns had stolen his comfortable shoes. "Well, you see, Your Majesty, he was stalling. Pearl elbowed him. Gain his trust. Ben knew that trust couldn't be gained with a lie. That made no sense. Trust had to be gained with truth. His shoulders slumped. "I felt bad this morning because I found out that my mom and my dad are going to live in 2 different houses. Sometimes it feels good to let a secret fly free, but this time it only felt worse." "Oh, Ben, I'm so sorry," Pearl said, patting his back. The Griffin King unfolded his hands and sat up straight. "Thou art sad because thou willest haveth 2 homes, but I haveth 2 homes. I haveth my den, and I haveth my nest." Ben leaned against the cage. "Do you like living in 2 places?" "Yes, I doth like it very much. The den is nicest on stormy days. The nest is nicest on sunny days. The nest is whereth I discuss. The den is whereth I ponder." His eyes narrowed. "But I haveth nothing to ponder, because the riddles have all run out. Do you want Ben to tell you another riddle? Pearl asked. And if he does, can we have one of your feathers to take back to Dr. Wu? Ben and Pearl clung to the cage bars, waiting for the king's reply. Very well. If your riddle doth maketh me ponder, and doth maketh me pleased, then, and only then, shall I give you a feather.